The year 2020 commemorates the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote across the United States. The Frick is celebrating with a series of videos honoring stories of women at the museum who made, appeared in, collected, and took care of art in this collection. And as we celebrate, we also pay tribute to women who were left out of the vote, especially Black women in the South and Indigenous and Asian women who were categorically denied citizenship. While later acts of law addressed these exclusions, many women continued to fight for their right to vote, even today. This episode is about a woman who worked to take care of the Frick when it was still a private residence. Before the Frick opened to the public as a museum in 1935, it was a home. The last traces of the household staff can be found in places like the West Gallery, where one can still see the mother-of-pearl call buttons, which were used to call members of staff. Who would answer that call? Ruth Berlin is one of the few members of the domestic staff whose stories have come down to us today. She worked as the Frick family's second chambermaid from 1921 to 1925. But what's her story? I'm honored to be joined in this episode by my colleague, Caitlin Henningsen, whose research on the Frick's household staff has brought many untold stories to light.
Thank you, Aimee. Ruth Berlin was, like most of the Frick's domestic employees, an immigrant to the United States. Here she is in her native Sweden, at about age 16, 4 years before she came to the US as part of a mass migration around the turn of the 20th century. Many single young women like Ruth ended up working as maids in big cities. Though Henry Clay Frick had died 2 years before she arrived, his wife Adelaide and daughter Helen continued to live at 1 East 70th Street, which remained amply staffed, with about 20 employees living and working on site. Young, white immigrant women made up the majority of this staff, which included laundresses, parlor maids, and cooks, in addition to the butler and footman. As chambermaid, Ruth's responsibilities likely focused on the second-floor bedrooms and other private spaces. Chambermaids swept, dusted, turned over mattresses and bedding, and much more. She started at $60 a month and worked 7 days a week. After 4 years with the Fricks, Ruth went on to work for a number of wealthy families, including the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts. She retired at the age of 72. In 1956, after 44 years in the U.S., she became an American citizen and obtained the right to vote. She died in 1982, at the age of 90. I'm grateful to Ruth's family for sharing with me photographs of her, including a number taken later in her life at one of her favorite places, Rockefeller Center, just a stone's throw from the Frick, which had since opened to the public as a museum. I wonder if she visited the Frick in those years, and what she must have felt walking through these rooms.
Ruth is just one of so many women who were essential to households like the Fricks. So the next time you visit the Frick and other historic house museums, I hope you'll also think of Ruth Berlin and the many working women whose stories, often left untold, are inextricable from these celebrated places.